A 4-year-old rhinoceros named Vince, who lived in a zoo in France, was unfortunately found dead earlier this week. This was Monday night. He was found shot 3 times in the head inside of the zoo with his horn cut off, apparently with a chainsaw. The white rhinoceros's second horn had also been partially hacked off, indicating the perpetrators had run out of time or their equipment had failed. Now, we're talking about this animal, Vince the rhinoceros. We're also going to talk about another case of poaching like this, because this is still a worldwide problem. And now apparently it's moving into places where we've never seen it before. This is believed to be the first poached animal inside of a European zoo, at least that we were able to find. Now, why is this going on? Well, rhinoceros horns can be sold on the black market for around 30,000 pounds each and are particularly sought after in China, where they're believed to have aphrodisiac qualities. So that's in China, but of course, in many other parts of the world, they're used for antiques, gun handles, jewelry, all sorts of things like that. And it's shocking that this happened, that it's inside a zoo. It took place despite security cameras and 5 members of zoo staff living on the site. And remember, gun plus chainsaw, but it still happened.
Well, if that's about at least $50,000, right? That's a lot of incentive to break in, and in the zoo they obviously have some security, but it's not like it's a bank, right? And if there's just $50,000 laying out there for you to take, you might take it. So now, but don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing it. I think what happened was horrific, and the main culprits to me are not the guys who did it. If by God catch them, put them in jail. Don't get me wrong. The main culprits are the people who believe this insanity about how these horns are an aphrodisiac and are willing to pay 30,000 pounds for a rhinoceros horn. Look, there are things that are cultural, and I guess some liberals say, hey, you know, it's all relative. I'm not one of those guys, okay? I think some parts of culture are disastrous, including some parts of American culture, but look, you can take examples from all across the world. Honor killings, horrific, right? In Central Asia, some women are kidnapped, raped, and then the family comes over and convinces them to marry their rapist, right? And that's a tradition, okay? That's a tradition we could do without, right? And so this tradition of thinking that horns are aphrodisiacs is not true. Get it through your thick skulls. It isn't true. And take a goddamn Viagra and be done with it. Okay, it's not gonna make your penis larger. It's not gonna make it more erect. You're paying all that money and butchering these animals for no goddamn reason. And if you think that's part of your culture, I'm sorry, but your culture is wrong. It's just factually incorrect.
And that's totally true. And there's a lot of animals that are sharks obviously suffer for the same reason. A lot of animals suffer because of the belief that they have some sort of medicinal or sexual effect. But even if there wasn't that, there's a lot of people who really think a rifle looks cooler with some ivory on it, or think that for a piano it's necessary, or for jewelry it's necessary. And I understand that a lot of people will rightly say, well, if it's horrific to hack off a horn from a rhino and to put it on jewelry, well, then also using leather and things like that. And I understand that that's a spectrum, and I'm moving on that spectrum. But at the very least, let's understand that these animals are far, far rarer than in other places. I mean, rhinos have, some rhinos have rebounded a little bit thanks to the efforts of conservationists, but they're still extremely rare. And we're gonna move on to another animal that's even more rare. So conservationists also discovered the body of Satao 2, one of the countries is in Kenya, largest, most iconic elephants during a routine flyover of Tsavo National Park. He was likely killed when he was shot by a poisoned arrow in a poaching attempt. They apparently found the body several weeks ago, conducted an investigation. Rangers recovered his long, heavy tusks before poachers claimed them. They also detained 2 poachers believed to be responsible for his death about 2 weeks later, recovering an AK-47 along with bows and poisoned arrows. Now, the reason he's referred to as a tusker is because this is not a normal elephant. This is a rarer type of elephant whose tusks are so long that they can actually reach the ground, and thus they become a more valuable target for poachers. And it's sort of tragic. This elephant was named after another Satao. That one was killed, another tusker was killed by poachers back in 2014. When he was found, his tusks were missing and his face had been so badly mutilated that authorities had difficulty identifying him. Now, there's also some horrifying numbers here. And as I was talking before, this is about rarity too. Poachers kill between 20,000 and 30,000 elephants a year for their tusks. That horrific number represents significant progress, because at one point it was over 40,000, and literally more than 10% of all elephants on the planet were being killed each year as a result of poaching. But the tuskers are far more rare than even these elephants. Only 30 tuskers remain in all of Africa.
Oh.
And one was just killed.
And they're killing them for their horns, so some guy thinks that his penis gets a little larger. Jesus Christ, man. Have some sort of decency. And again, if you think I'm being too tough on the Chinese here, as John pointed out, people use it for other reasons as well. And of course, every country and culture has its own problems. We had slavery here in America. That was a pretty terrible part of our culture. And look at, and you could say, hey, look at what you do to your cows. And it's horrific what we do to our cows and pigs, etc. And I eat steak, and maybe I'm a hypocrite too. And I understand that. But we have got to stop killing these animals. There's only 30 left of the tuskers, just for a little bit of profit for something that doesn't even work. It's just, it drives me nuts. And so they should do a public, campaign to let folks know who believe this nonsense that it isn't true. Stop murdering these animals for what you think is your gain, and you're like our right wing here. You don't believe in science, you don't believe in facts, and the things that you believe are grossly wrong and leads to gross injustice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure in some cases, I'm sure they try. In this case, they didn't actually even get the tusks. And it's great that conservationist organization does this over a big area of this natural preserve, catching some of the poachers. They believe that poaching group may be sort of broken by these two people being taken. And it's great that they do what they do, but it's terrible that the numbers are still as high as they are.
Let's go take on the corporate media. Come join us, be a member, and change the media. TYTnetwork.com/join.